1951, Florence Chadwick became the first woman to swim the English Channel both ways. Can you imagine doing that? And then in 1952, so just a year later, she decided to swim the 22 miles or so from Catalina Island to the shore of California. It was a foggy day, quite chilly. She could hardly see a thing. But she swam steadily for 15 hours and then begged to be taken out of the water. Her mother was in a boat going alongside, and her mother was saying to her, "Come on, you can do this, you're so close." But physically and emotionally exhausted, Florence stopped swimming and was pulled out of the water. Now, it wasn't until she was on board the boat that she discovered that the shore was less than half a mile away. At a news conference the next day, she said this: "All I could see was the fog. I think if I could have seen the shore, I'd have made it." She could have made it. It was only another half a mile. And Florence Chadwick didn't give up because she wasn't strong enough to finish. She gave up because she was discouraged. She couldn't see the shore, and she lost faith in her own ability to finish the swim. Discouragement blinded her and blighted her attempt. Now, if you've been following along in our Bible reading plan, through Genesis 41 and 50, you've come across this lovely chap, Joseph. And Joseph's an interesting character, isn't he? You know, it's not just the stuff of musicals. No, I'm not going to sing for you. I'm sorry. But, you know, in a 50-chapter book, you've got something like a quarter of the book dedicated to this guy's life. Nobody else in Genesis gets as much attention as Joseph. Not Noah, not Abraham, not even Jacob, nobody else. So the question is, why so much space is devoted to Joseph? What's the point? And the point is this: he is absolutely pivotal in God's story for Israel. So Joseph's a really, really important character. And it's really important, therefore, that we look at his life, and in so doing, that we do that really carefully. Because these days, there are some dodgy ideas out there about the kind of people God blesses. Some people tell you that if you're spiritual enough, God will bless you. He'll supply all your needs. You'll be healthy and wealthy and wise beyond all imagination. Flip side of that, of course, if you're not spiritual enough, you'll be sickly and you'll be poor and none too bright. The prosperity gospel problem. The idea isn't new. Even the Jews of Jesus' day had fallen into that trap. They believed that wealth was a reward from God. He gave it to the faithful, and if a person was wealthy, well, they'd obviously done something right with God. So you can imagine, can't you, when Jesus turned around and told his mates that it was easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the rich to enter heaven. They were absolutely flabbergasted. If the rich couldn't get into heaven, what chance did they have? It's like God is some kind of celestial slot machine. All you have to do is push the right buttons, pull the right levers, and God will pour out blessings. And more often than not, of course, the buttons they encourage you to push are buttons on your telephone to dial in your special donation to their ministry. I say all of this because I just want to say, be careful what you watch online, because this kind of teaching is out there. It's not biblical, it's not right, it's not true. It's strewn with errors, but it is having quite a hold over people. You see, the fact that God has a plan for Joseph's life, for my life, for your life, is not about us using God to get what we want. When God says he has a plan for your life, it's not about him giving you everything you desire: health, wealth, and happiness, a mansion, a Maserati. I'd love a Maserati. A huge swimming pool in your back garden. Please don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with these things. No, when God says he has a plan for your life, what he's saying is, look, here's a chance to be in relationship with me. He's saying he has a plan to make you the best version of you that's possible. He's going to give you meaning and purpose in life. He's going to give you a reason to live, a reason to exist. I don't know whether you know Milton Berle. He was a comedian decades ago, and he wrote this little ditty, this little poem, which went like this: I'd rather be a could-be if I cannot be an are, because a could-be is a maybe who is reaching for a star. I'd rather be a has-been than a might-have-been by far, for a might-have-been has never been, but a has was once an are. God says to you and me today, you can be a could-be. And I think we just need to pause there and get hold of that. Because a lot of you have people speaking into your lives telling you that you're a nobody and you'll never amount to anything or whatever. God says the opposite. He says you could be a could-be. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. We are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. God is saying, if you're in a relationship with me, you become a could-be. God said you could be capable of doing awesome things because he's prepared stuff uniquely for you. Things he's prepared for you long before you ever decided to become his child. In other words, God has plans for your life and for mine. He has an idea of what you could be. Echoes those well-known words as God speaks to his people in Jeremiah 29. I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. How awesome is it this morning to realize God has a plan for your life, eh? Think about that. God has a plan for your life. And that brings us nicely to Joseph. Because God had a plan for Joseph and his life. And we've been reading about this week. It's interesting, isn't it? He said to his brothers in chapter 50, and I'll say more about this in a moment, they put him through the mire, didn't they? You know, the stuff in the musical, you can call it to mind, the way they behaved. And he turns around to them and he says, look, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what's now being done. The saving of many lives. God had a plan. Joseph held on to that. That's the good news. There's obviously some bad news as well. Because sometimes in order for God to use us, he has to knock off some rough edges. Do you have rough edges in your life? I'm sure you do. I do. God has to deal with those. And sometimes it's like going to the school of hard knocks, isn't it? It's a bit painful. You have to go through things. But we learn through those things. That's so true for Joseph. God gave him amazing dreams, you remember? He had these dreams, and then he goes to the school of hard knocks. His brothers get him off by himself, beat the whatever out of him, throw him in a pit, they sell him into slavery, and for the next 11 years, he's a slave, and for 2 more years he's in prison. It's another 11 years before he gets to see his father again. This isn't right, this isn't fair, this shouldn't have happened. He's God's guy. Where was God anyway while all of this was happening? I'm sure when we go through difficulties we question like that, don't we? Where is God? Well, Genesis 39. Genesis 39 verse 2 tells us the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. Verse 5 tells us the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And on to verse 21, the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. All the time. All the time. Do you see it? All the time that Joseph's in slavery, all the time that he's in prison, God is there. What are you going through today? God's with you. God's with you. Everything that Joseph had to go through was all part of God's plan, because God was preparing this young man to become a great leader. And that's what he does with us, isn't it? He's got a plan. I love those words in Romans where Paul says this: we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. Hope does not put us to shame. Now again, just slight correction here, because I don't want to be misunderstood. Does this mean that every time we suffer, God makes it happen? No. No. What Paul is saying here is that when we go through difficulties, God can use it to shape us, to mold us. So some of you right now are going through the school of hard knocks. It's difficult, but God's with you, and he can use this. So God gave Joseph, for instance, an exciting dream and then steers him through years of hardship and difficulty. I often reflect on whether Joseph was okay with that. Do you think he simply sat back and took it all in his stride? What do you remember from the musical? What did you see in the text as you read it this week? No way. Of course he doesn't. He's pretty miffed. We know he's pretty miffed because of the names he gives his kids. Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God's made me forget all my hardships, my father's house. Name of the second he called Ephraim, for God's made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Hardship, affliction, brothers who hated his guts. They knew that their dad loved him more than them. They knew God had given Joseph 2 dreams in which the older brothers were going to bow down and honor Joe. It didn't go down well with them. They became so angry, one day they got him off by himself, threw him in a pit, planned to kill him, and but for a bunch of slave traders coming along and then being able to sell him for a few quid, they'd have done him in. Oh, Joseph knows his fair share of hardship and affliction. But darn it, as a slave in Egypt, things went well for him. That is, until his master's wife fell in love with him. He refused her advances. She accused him of attempting to rape her. Her husband believed her and threw Joseph in prison. Add it all up, 17 years. Joseph is a captive in Egypt, first as a slave, then as a prisoner. 17 years. No hope of seeing his home, no hope of seeing his family. Hardship. That's real hardship, that's real affliction. No wonder he names his sons Manasseh and Ephraim. But you know what gets me? That's the only time I get an inclination that he whinges. Joseph never seems to have a pity party. Do you like a pity party? I love a pity party, me. You'll often hear me at home saying this phrase, stop moaning, Mark. True, Sarah? I say it quite a lot. Because I like a good whinge. I like a good whine, a good moan, a good groan. But no, sold into slavery, he's the best slave he could be. In fact, he was such a good slave, his master put him in charge of everything. Then when he was in prison, he was the best prisoner he could be. And the warden of the prison made him a trustee. See, almost a third of the book of Genesis is focused on Joseph's life. But you never read of him, except when we read about him naming his 2 sons, okay? But you never really read of him moaning and groaning and whinging and whining. He had every reason to be discouraged, didn't he? Of course he did. So, why isn't he? Why was Joseph able to avoid being filled with negativity and dismay and despair? For 17 years he lived as a slave and as a prisoner, never expecting to see his home and his family again. He didn't deserve to be treated like that. How could he avoid being blinded by discouragement? The answer is there in those verses where he names his kids. Joseph, it's easy to miss this. Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget. There's the hardship, there's the affliction. But God has made me forget all my hardships. The name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Do you notice what Joseph's doing? Despite the circumstances, his focus is on God. What are you struggling with today? What's going on in your life? I look out on this sea of faces. I'm privileged as a pastor to walk with many of you through some really difficult and dark times. I just want to say this again. God is with you. And here it is. God is with Joseph in all that's going on. God is his focus. God has made me forget. God has made me fruitful. Joseph was so connected to God, that was his mindset all through his captivity. See, if you've got a Bible with you, or a Bible app on your phone, open it up to Genesis 39. We read of Joseph's slavery and imprisonment. Verses 2 and 3, it's just amazing what you see going on here. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of the Egyptian master. The master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. You read on, Potiphar's wife, falsely accusing Joseph of attempted rape. Verse 20, verse 21. Joseph's master took him, put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. Keep reading, verse 23. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. What are you going through? God is with you. God is with you. You're not alone. 4 times in that chapter we're told the Lord was with him. 4 times. That was the secret that kept him from whinging and moaning and being blinded by discouragement. I mean, everybody gets discouraged. Don't you? Yes. We all do. And some people get discouraged a lot more than others. But there's a couple of things here that I'd like us to consider about discouragement this morning. The first is this. I was playing around with words this week. Discourage. Discourage. Heck of a word, isn't it? Discourage. Do you see something embedded in that word? Yeah. Courage. It's there. Sounds so negative, doesn't it? Discourage. More about that in a moment, but there it is, courage. Courage is embedded in it. Discourage has a sister word called encourage. Again, notice, what's part of the word? Courage. The only difference between these two words is the first 2 or 3 letters. They're called prefixes. Is that right, Sarah? Have I got that right? Thank you. They modify the main word. So the dis prefix means to take away or to remove. Thus, discourage means something has taken away or removed your courage. The en prefix means in, put in. Thus, encourage means something has put courage into you. Now, are you a discourager or an encourager? Because you know how it is, let's be honest, you hang around some people, blinking heck, they sap the life out of you. They're so discouraging. Moaning, whinging, whining. God is with you. God is with you, and he wants to give you courage. What takes away your courage? A lack of courage can come when we face situations we just can't control. We can feel helpless and vulnerable and weak. We're faced with difficulties that we can't understand or deal with. And blinking heck, that's what's going on with Joseph, isn't it? He finds himself in a foreign land, no chance of getting home. He's a slave, he's trapped in slavery, he's a prisoner, he's locked up behind bars. I'd understand if this guy moaned. I'd understand if he was discouraged, wouldn't you? Of course we would. Now, none of us are in a physical slavery in a foreign land. None of us are prisoners in a physical jail, but you might be a slave to circumstances that you can't control. You may well be imprisoned in a situation that you can't overcome. It could be a health issue or a relationship that's falling apart or a job that makes you feel miserable. The list goes on and on and on. Situations like that can really rob you of courage and hope. They can blind you with discouragement, can't they? They can. So what can we do about that? How do you get your courage back? Where are you going to get your encouragement? How are we going to get courage back into you this morning? Well, same place Joseph went. God. God. Joseph looked to God for his strength. God made me forget. God made me fruitful. God was with me through all my difficulties. Do you remember a couple of Sundays ago, we started the service with a reading from Deuteronomy 31. God will never leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31, Moses speaking to Joshua. The Lord is the one who will go before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid or discouraged. God said the same thing to Joshua after Moses died. The Lord told Joshua 1 verse 9, haven't I commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or discouraged. For the Lord your God is with you. What are you going through? What are you navigating at the moment? What are you wrestling? God is with you. It's a repeated theme throughout scriptures. Last Friday, did you do the Lent journal? If you did the Lent journal last Friday, Pastor Tim referenced that beautiful little piece in Philippians chapter 4. Look at it. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. See, he'll never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Spend time with God. Focus on God. If you do that, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I love that. Pastor Tim was writing in the Lent journal about the hope that we can have. This peace can be ours. It transcends everything. It doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, it shouldn't work, but I tell you now, it does. And there are scores of you around this place this morning who can testify to this. It does work. I can't explain it, but it works. The thing to realize is that you and I are weak, but God isn't. As God told the Apostle Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. What are you going through? What are you struggling with? What are you wrestling at the moment? You're discouraged? God is with you. When we learn to trust that God will never leave us nor forsake us, that's how we can regain our courage. I want to finish with this lady. Gladys Aylward. How many of you have heard of Gladys Aylward? Just out of interest? How many of you haven't got a clue who we're talking about? Thank you. It's interesting, isn't it? Gladys Aylward became a missionary to China. She loved the Chinese people. But World War II was beginning, and she was forced to flee the invading Japanese army. She was torn by the belief that she couldn't just leave the people she loved to suffer, especially the many orphans that she worked with. So, with only one assistant to help her, she led more than 100 children over the mountains to reach freedom. And during that long and hard journey, she began to struggle with despair and discouragement. There was no way they were ever going to reach safety. The children are going to starve. They're going to die on the way. She couldn't stop it. It's beyond her. It became obvious to the children as well that she was losing hope. She wasn't sleeping. And so it goes. One morning, a 14-year-old girl in the group reminds her about the much-loved story that they loved to tell of Moses and the Israelites crossing the Red Sea. The Israelites survived, and so would they. And apparently Gladys bitterly cried out, "But I'm not Moses." And the girl replied, "Of course you aren't. But Jehovah is still God." What are you going through? God is with you. The God of Joseph is our God. The rest of the story, by the way, for Gladys, they came to a river they couldn't cross. They were stuck there for 4 days. At one point, some of the children turned around. Why doesn't God open up the waters of the Yellow River for us to cross as he did for the Israelites? Gladys, she's at the end of herself. She thought, I can't open these waters. I've got no power than the power of my own faith. So what she did, like many Christians have done down through the centuries, she said to the kids, "Let's sing a hymn. And perhaps soon our prayers will be answered." Believe it or not far away, an army of Chinese soldiers heard the children singing. The soldiers came, found them, gave them food, provided boats for them to cross the river, and Gladys's children made their way to safety. True story. True story. Sometimes we have no idea what lies ahead or how to navigate difficult situations. In all the years Joseph spent in slavery, in prison, isolated from his family and his friends, how did he handle it? Well, he determined to face it all with God. He trusted God's plan. And the whole of the 39th chapter of Genesis is woven with that repeated drumbeat. The Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with him. Whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. Joseph just trusted. God was with him, guiding, guarding him every step of the way. That's what this story is all about. And whatever you're struggling with, whatever you are really going through, God is with you. You can trust him. And trust this situation to him. Because he's working things out. For his honor, for his glory, and for your benefit. Let's bow our heads. I'm very conscious that some of you really are going through very testing and trying times at the moment. And I just really want you to hear, God is with you. God is with you.